I had this idea for Mobius, and I thought, if someone launched this company in 2 years, would I be pissed about it? And I was like, absolutely, I'd be furious. So I was like, then I have to do it, because I clearly want it, and I see the vision, and I want to grow it myself, like do it.
Welcome everybody to another episode of F5 Collective presents Women in Business. Today we are with Caroline Turnbull, who has created a fantastic app called Mobius. It's fitness without the pressure of competition and leaderboards, and basically it's building that community that, as somebody who really wants to focus on their physical well-being but needs that boost and that support, Mobius is completely focused on that by some folks who understand what that means in the world of athletics. So Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today. This is such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to dive into this.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get together and talk about your love of fantasy, because that just sparked a whole thing. Vince knows, because yesterday we got to hang out with somebody who was like, so much fun. But today we're going to talk about you and Mobius and all that. But first, let's talk about, tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, the whole thing.
Yeah, so I'm from New Jersey, born and raised. I played field hockey and was working out my whole life. My dad was taking us to the track when we were like 6 years old. So it's always, fitness has always been a part of my life and my routine, which is very lucky because it makes it a lot easier as an adult to bring it into your routine. And then when I graduated high school, I went and played Division I field hockey for Lafayette College, and that's just a small liberal arts school in Pennsylvania. And there I studied civil environmental engineering, and I graduated in 2020. So I had a gap between graduating and starting my job in September. And during that gap, I had nothing to do. I was supposed to travel Europe. And my mom was like, you should do yoga teacher training instead. She's a yoga teacher. And I've always enjoyed yoga. Ever since I was younger, I have been like her little yogi buddy since I was like 7 years old. And so I decided to do the 200 hours, and everything about my perception on fitness started to change. And so a large reason for that is because this teacher training specifically was heavy on anatomy, and biomechanics, engineering, and anatomy like all are very closely related. And so it made a lot of sense to my brain. And I am someone who tore both their ACLs. So injury is, we can dive into that as well, because it is all part of the lore that brought me to where I am. But I then started becoming more curious about like, why am I getting injured? Not just accepting the injuries. And so that kind of pushed me down even a more path towards personal training, because I was like, I can help more people with their, like, to prevent injuries if they just know kind of how to move their body better. So then I became a personal trainer, and then I was working full-time in construction, and was kind of known as like the fitness guru on the job sites, and it was definitely fun. I did some meditation sessions with the construction workers. Like it was good. It was a good persona to have.
Oh, cool.
But I then decided to do a 300-hour yoga teacher training, and that was like it was a couple hours every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it took over a bunch of my downtime life, but I loved it so much, and I wanted that to be my full-time job. And then just through that, there was a lot of ego work as well with the sutras, and you're just kind of always questioning your identity and what identity is and all of that. And that really pushed me to be like, I don't like construction. Like I enjoyed project management, because you're working with people towards a collective end goal, which is very similar to sports. And so that I could really relate to, but in terms of like actual construction, I didn't really care too much about it. And I wanted to really care about the project I was building. And so I wanted to be a personal trainer full-time and a yoga teacher. And so when I told my parents this, my mom was like, you have an engineering degree, do something with it. And I was like, okay, fair. And so then I ended up going back to school for software engineering. And this was like in 2023. So I did an intensive boot camp called Grace Hopper.
Wow.
And it was 5 days a week, 8 hours every day. for 6 months, and that was amazing. But this was before vibe coding was a thing. This was like right when ChatGPT was launched, and so it was actually really bad at coding ChatGPT. So it like there was no fear of them taking over the jobs yet. But yeah, so I did the whole school, and when I graduated, I worked in software for about 6 months, and then that startup ended up kind of falling apart, and I decided to start my own fitness tech company. So that's my deep lore in a nutshell.
Whoa. Okay, so you said something that really sparked me, that the biomechanics and anatomy, how does that kind of correlate for you? Because I was going to ask you about you taking your engineering and technology background into this whole, marriage of fitness.
Yeah. It's a lot of it is pattern recognition. And so understanding like what the system is. So when I started ground force reaction, like all of that, it really kind of made sense to my brain. And like, you can think of your anatomy as like all separate muscles and separate bones, but really they're all moving at the together to distribute a force to make yourself walk forward. And the way your foot hits the ground determines how your knee then bears a load and how your hip is bearing the load. So it's all a chain force reaction. So all of that made a lot of sense to my brain. And I really enjoyed that, especially because I was someone who was always chronically injured. And I just made a few tweaks to all of those systems, and I haven't really been injured at all for the past what year is it? 2026. So for the past like 6 years, I haven't really had an injury other than I broke my thumb. That was because a field hockey ball hit that. So that had nothing to do with the way I moved my body. Yeah, so all of that just, again, really exploded in my brain, and I loved it.
Right. So you were talking about you tore both your ACLs?
Yeah. So that is also deep lore. So my family, it's hereditary in my family, and we didn't know this obviously until like the third one of us, and then So my oldest sister, so I'm one of three, I'm the youngest.
Okay.
My oldest sister tore her ACL when she was going into her freshman year of high school, and she was playing field hockey, and it was just, that stinks. Like her foot kind of got stuck on a pivot and tore her ACL, and it's an unfortunate thing. So we went and found a surgeon in New York City. He was great, fixed her ACL, and she was out for 8 months. And it's just like, what a bummer, but oh well. And then within the next year, I think it was like maybe 6 months later, my middle sister tore her ACL, and she was in 7th grade. And so we went back to the same surgeon, and we're like, wow, what a coincidence. And she was her foot actually got caught on a jacket. Because when kids in recess, they just throw their jackets on the ground. Yeah. Her foot got caught in one of those jackets, and then she tore her ACL. And so then my mom was like, to the surgeon, because he was like, like orthopedic surgeon, he was like, all right, we're gonna have to do surgery. And my mom was like, she's like 13 years old, like she's still growing, I don't have any ACLs, does she really need to have her ACL operated on? And the surgeon was like, I'm sorry, you don't have ACLs? And my mom's like, yeah, I tore both of mine, like never got surgery. And my mom is very active. She's a yoga teacher. And so she's always moving. Granted, she's not doing kind of like cross-functional movements. It's more, again, on the mat. Right. But she can jump side to side, no problem. And so the surgeon was like, we need to do a case study on this. So we're actually in a book about that this orthopedic surgeon wrote for the Hospital of Special Surgery in New York City, and we're a case study.
Oh my God. Because
he was like, this is insane. This has to be hereditary, and like, let's look into this. And so then followed suit. He would like record all the conversations and everything. And so my middle sister did not get surgery on her knee. Okay. And then within the next year, like a year later, I then tore my first ACL when I was in 6th grade. So I was 12. Wow. And so then he was like, oh my God, the third. And so then, so I didn't get surgery on that knee. And then pretty much within every year and a half, one of us tore then another ACL or meniscus, and like some surgeries were kind of sprinkled in. But all three of the girls have torn all of our ACLs, and we've had, I think, 6 surgeries, but not all of the ACLs were repaired. It's like, it's a crazy,
Oh my gosh. Okay, so then on your journey, which obviously led to Mobius and all these other things, but this is really fascinating. So on your journey, what did you discover that helped you to say, okay, this is what I can tweak it, and then I can pass that on to others?
Yeah, so I discovered I have knocked knees, so my knees are more closely towards the
Yeah, me
medial
too.
than
Yeah.
my hips. Yeah. So that is like a recipe for tearing your ACL, because it's the ACL when it tears, it's when one part of your knee goes this way, the other goes this way. And that ACL is what connects it. It's like a little bit of like a structure like this, and it just snaps. And so knock knees have a much higher chance of that tearing. And also women in general do have a higher chance of tearing their ACL because their hips tend to be wider than where their knees sit. So so pretty much what I learned, I had very weak outer hips, which is also, again, common in many people, but it was worse for me because I already had knocked knees. So I had weak outer hips. I had really bad ankle flexion. So the flexibility of my ankle when it struck the ground, like I couldn't really get my foot to go higher than that. So
wow.
the knees over toes, like I could not do that. And then because of that, I had tight hip flexors and weak glutes. And so all of that combined just was like a recipe for disaster. And so I was like, okay, so before I work out, I need to focus on warming up, making sure my ankles are like mobile. So stretching my calves, getting that ankle flexion going, and then working out and prepping the muscles in my outer hips so my glutes fire up, and my glutes as well. So the outer hips and the glutes fire up before I go in. So I'm not going in cold, because a lot of it is mind-body connection. So if your muscles, your body wants to move in the path of least resistance.
Right.
And so if your muscles aren't firing up properly, that's that's resistance. So your brain is going to say, okay, I'm going to use the next best thing. So quads. I'm very quad dominant. So my quads were doing a lot of the work, and my glutes and outer hips were not.
Right.
And so to kind of retrain that brain, warming those up, and like having like, even I poke my muscles so that my brain can feel, I'm like, okay, this is how I fire this up. And it makes it a lot easier than when I'm actually doing the workout to engage those muscles.
Oh, that makes total sense. Now, this brings up a really great point, because then it brings up Mobius, the whole psychology and the brain and getting your whole body aligned, right? Yeah. So when you decided to start Mobius, what was that moment that said, okay, I'm going to do this? I mean, I know that you said that you wanted to get out of construction and all of that, but it's one thing to say, I'm going to get out of construction and go to another company and do this. It's a whole other thing to say, I'm going to get out of construction. I'm going to start my own company. So
yeah, not even a company.
I know. So what was that leap like? And then what really was that, okay, this is it. I got to do this, and this is the way I'm going to do it.
So I kept thinking to myself, I truly think yoga did so much for me in this, because so much of even like executive coaching has so much to do with that ego and identity. And so thank goodness I got this executive coaching when I was 23 years old, or I guess 24, but I was sitting at my desk. I remember like the exact moment, and I was looking at kind of the people that are in positions that I would later get into. And I was like, do I want this life? And again, their lives are great. Like they're doing great. They're crushing it. But I was like, everything in their life is about construction in this company. And do I want that for myself? And I was like, no, not really. And then along with that, I had this idea for Mobius, and I thought, if someone launched this company in 2 years, would I be pissed about it? And I was like, absolutely, I'd be furious. So I was like, then I have to do it, because I clearly want it, and I see the vision, and I want to grow it myself, like do it. So that was really what kind of kicked me into the fifth gear, and a little bit of delusion of I'll figure it out was super important. And one thing, well, actually, maybe I'll save that to the end, because I know there are like 5 bullet points for the end. But a lot of it is like, just get started. You're never gonna know what you're doing, so don't try and prep yourself. I think I did a lot of the prep work because I became a software engineer. I worked in software, and then so that took like a year and delayed me a year from starting anything. And what I've learned for sure is just get started as soon as possible, and you'll learn on the way.
Right. Well, also you're a project manager, right? And so your brain is going to be looking at the project and trying to manage it appropriately, which is never a bad thing. But
never.
Yeah, we'll get to the 5 points. So tell a little bit about what Mobius is and how the user experience of the app.
So, Mobius is a social network for fitness, and it's all about taking metrics out and bringing community in. And so, my co-founder and I are both software engineers, and we're both personal trainers. So, a very niche, unique kind of idea of how to view fitness, and we came together because we were both frustrated with the way fitness was being marketed. So, it was all about like 1% better or 100% better every day, the PRs and the highlights of the fitness journey, where the majority of your fitness journey is going to be either lowlights or maintenance. And that is really hard to get through because sometimes in your brain, those efforts don't really have that exact, like, I did this and this is the outcome. And we're so trained now to have immediate outcomes in our like life and in society. And fitness is not immediate. It is consistency. Yeah. And if you try and make it immediate, you will get immediate results, but you will also burn out. And so we were trying to take out those triggers of immediacy. So leaderboards, competition, streaks, take all of those out and instead bring in something that builds more consistency, which is a support system. And what you learn as a personal trainer in your certification, one of the biggest things you learn about how to create a consistent and sustainable client is helping them build their support system. That's like one of the number one things. It's like reducing barriers to entry and then helping them build a support system. And so that is what we're doing with Mobius, and also with the whole mindset that all movement counts. There's the classic kind of phrase, I just went for a walk today, but that is a huge feat. People sit all day long, whether because they're struggling through something or their work is kind of forcing them into it. The majority of humans are like in the Western world are sitting 90% of the day. Yeah. And so the fact that you went out for a walk is amazing. And if we start reframing that mindset around movement, it's a lot easier to then maybe go for a run after the walk or go for a run during the day or maybe go for a lift. But if we're always pushing, run a marathon or have a really heavy lift, going from the couch to that is a very big leap. And it's a little too overwhelming for 75% of adults in the US. Yeah. So long story short, that's why we built Mobius. And that's kind of what the user experience is. You see everyday movement. There's no videos, so it's only pictures. It's very low stim. And it's people commenting on your posts. But the comments are also private because that's another comparison aspect. We don't want someone to see someone else's post that has 8 comments and your post gets 3, and then you're like, what's the point of this? Right. So you only know who's commenting on your post. That's it. And that is enough. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm curious about, I love what you say about that immediacy because you're right. The sustainability comes from the consistency, right? And recognizing that you're taking steps towards that immediate gratification it's rough, man. That's a rough one. And we'll get to that question in a little bit, but I'm so curious about how you really discovered that psychology around, the motivation or the, needing to move away from to be able to support.
Yeah. So it was a lot of, my own personal situation with fitness. So as I said, I got really into yoga, I got really into fitness, I became a personal trainer. It really kind of took over a part of my identity. And I was wearing like the wristwatches and all of that, and I became obsessed with the data. And as an engineer, I love data, and I love, again, seeing the results of my work. And so for a couple of years, I was constantly checking the watch, constantly kind of making sure I was closing loops. I was making sure I was hitting certain recovery scores and all of that. And very similarly to, I almost lost that mind-body connection again because I was relying on a wristwatch to tell me how I was feeling, and I wasn't checking in with myself ever. And so what ended up happening was I was vegan for 5 years, and I was slowly getting really sick because of it. And I kept telling myself, like, my recovery scores were 99%. I had an incredible HRV. My HRV was like 112, like a really like high marks in terms of data and metrics. And I ran a half marathon, but it was like such a struggle to just get out of bed every day. And I was like, why do I feel so tired all the time? And my hair started falling out, my nails were really brittle, I was really pale, but I wasn't seeing any of that. I was just looking at the watch and being like, it's just, I'm doing a lot. I was working part-time while in school. Like I was doing a lot, but the level of fatigue that I had was unbelievable.
Wow.
But again, I was so disassociated from my body, all in the name of health and fitness.
Yeah.
And so I then ended up going to a doctor because I had my annual like checkup, and they were like, "Oh, everything looks good," and I was like, "Really?" Because I did not look good. And so then I ended up going to a TCM doctor, and she took one look at me, and she was like, "All right, we gotta look into what's going on," and that almost made me cry because I was like, "Wow, I'm being like I feel seen."
Yeah.
And I wasn't seeing myself, which is like so funny. All I wanted was for someone to see me, and all I had to do was see for myself.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so she was like, "You are so severely anemic," to the point like I was like close to needing transfusions.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it was because, not to say every vegan goes through this, but I was not absorbing the iron that I needed, and especially as a woman, I had very heavy periods, so like that all kind of combined. And so I had to reintroduce red meat to my diet and reintroduce heme iron, which only comes from those animal products. And so that was also another identity change I had to go through. But
I was gonna say,
the vegan
especially after all that time, vegan back to meat. I mean, not even like go to pescatarian and like kind of slide. No.
Yeah, no, I full had to go back to the red meat, and I definitely cried about it. But I was like, okay, again, I keep having to relearn the same lesson just in like different fonts. But all of that kind of brought me to the point of that realization, like, wow, my body has been telling me this information for 9 months.
Yeah.
And I was not listening because that immediate wearable was not giving me that information.
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, and then I also, during that whole time, I went through a burnout because I was so exhausted. It was hard for me to even go to the gym. And from going to half marathons and intense trainings and doing handstands all the time and being that fitness person to not even being able to get out of bed, like I could have gone for walks, but in my brain, I was like, I'm not the same person I used to be.
Yeah.
And so that kept me from even getting out of bed and doing something about it. So that's where the whole psychological thing came from, because I was like, as I was getting better, I had to start adding just a little bit every day and being okay with that.
Yeah.
And I realized that once I came to that understanding with my body, I took my wearable off because I was obsessed with the numbers.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be hitting those numbers. Like that, if I did hit certain numbers that my wearable was telling me to hit, the next day I couldn't get out of bed. So I was like, I need to start listening to what my body needs. And once I did that, I became very consistent with fitness. Because another thing is consistency doesn't have to look like doing the same workout every day or every week. It can look like going for a walk one day and doing yoga the next day, and then doing maybe a really hard run the next day, and then resting the other day. Like, it doesn't have to look exactly the same, but there is that North Star.
Right. It does. I love that you're saying this. When you're interfacing with Mobius, I'm assuming that that's reinforced on there. This is what fitness can look like, and this is so that you can help people understand that what you're thinking, let's shift that.
Yeah. So we have we have these, they're called mobi pods, but they're groups, and they're more niche groups, but one of them is all movement counts. And so sometimes people post, "Oh, I just moved out of my apartment today." That is really hard. One person unloaded the dishwasher. Like, that was a really big deal for them, and like what their body was going through during their this span of their life. And sometimes it's, I went for a walk today, so it's really that all movement counts. I think there was one, I can't remember what it was. Oh, my friend actually went and picked up a Facebook Marketplace like couch. That is hard.
Yeah.
You're definitely sweating.
Yeah.
So like stuff like that, and allowing that reframe of what movement is. I was even talking to an investor the other day, and at first they were like, "I don't know if I'm really in your ICP. Like, I don't know if I'd get much benefit." But the more we talked about it, she was like, "Wow, I want to like post my walk to work. Like I would never post that on like that other fitness app, but on this, I am proud of that. That is movement. That's a mile getting steps in, but it's not like helping my PR time. And
Right,
so I was
right.
like, exactly. You are part of the ICP.
You're doing it. You're doing
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Now, the fitness industry is rough. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean it's a rough one. So I'm really curious, you getting into it, and especially with this really kind of counter position. What have been some of the challenges you faced getting into there, and also some of your successes that and how you celebrate those?
Yeah. So challenges for sure is the mindset around fitness. It's the mindset that it has to be hard. And fitness in general, a challenge is a challenge is a challenge. And so no matter what that fitness looks like for you or what that movement looks like for you, that's hard. It doesn't have to be the definition of 1,000 calories workout hard.
Yeah.
And I think that is a shift that's hard to change, especially with people, I would say, in the entrepreneurial world and the higher fitness world. Like those mindsets are very similar, because it's like it's a grind. You're resilient, you're gritty, like all of that stuff, and it's always associated with this like high performance outcome when it's like it doesn't always have to be the case. So I think initially when people hear it, it's almost there's a defense mechanism that comes in because and this is me being my yoga like psychology person, but I think it sometimes strikes a chord because there's a level of understanding and truth behind it that some people don't want to face. And so that is something that there's a lot of time we're met with a little bit of that pushback from certain communities, which is okay. And I'm like, hey, it's fine. And again, that's the embodiment of Mobius. I'm like, no problem. Easy going over here. And if you want to run like really fast in PR, go for it. Like we are here to support you during that journey. And we had someone that finished a half Ironman on Mobius, which is an incredible feat. But we're still here for her as she's now recovering from that. Whereas a lot of other apps are like, get up today. You're not doing enough. Like you just ran a half marathon 2 days ago, but like now you have to do this. Where Mobius is like, we're just impressed you're moving. So I would say that those are a lot of the kind of pushbacks we get. But in terms of the good things, like again, we had someone finish a half marathon. We had someone that is now on week 20 on their journey of fitness, like just trying to do 3 times in the gym. So we like seeing those little milestones from our users is like brings a tear to my eye every time I see it, because this is something they're struggling with, and now just giving them permission to show up as they are is helping them complete it. So those are the wins that I really love. And I love when I talk to people about this and I see it in their eyes where they're like, wow, I need this. Like that pressure is lifted off of them. So those are like the wins that just keep me going.
Now, what do you do for yourself when you're doing all of this? Because this is, this is hardcore stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, I will say I'm struggling with this. I definitely, it's hard. And I think anyone can relate to this, is like when you have this actually really, so I'm part of this other networking group, and we met yesterday to talk about what resilience means. And it was funny because all of us had negative, relationships with resilience, because resilience so commonly means you get back up and you keep going forward. And the first thing that I kind of reflected on in that when I started thinking of resilience is I never thought about when I get knocked down, we don't really talk about why we got knocked down. And before we get up, let's process that. And then we can get up and maybe not get knocked down next time. Yeah. And I'm saying all of this, again, it's like almost like talk therapy, because I just had like a really busy week, flew to Berkeley, pitched to a bunch of investors. That morning that I pitched to all these investors, I found out my grandfather passed away.
Oh, honey.
And I know.
It's been
a tough week. Thank you. But it's funny because I am saying all this and it's like you have to take your time to recover, but like the real world happens, and so you do have to like sometimes push through discomfort in that sense. So I was like, I still have my pitch tonight. Like I can't be like, hey guys, maybe we can reschedule. And it's like, no, this pitch event is happening.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I had to kind of be that resilient person, push through. But now I have to, now that I'm back, it's like I have to take time and process what just happened. And so that is something that I am learning to, yeah, maybe there are some days you have to push through, but you have to then schedule the days to come back down and be there for yourself. And I think a lot of this is also like there's so much reaction or like reactive behavior in the startup world because things are changing, it's fast, and that is not always healthy for a nervous system.
Yeah.
So being able to find routines, very little routines, just to feel that sense of reset for your nervous system. So I take in the morning, I get up and I don't look at my phone for the first hour, which is really hard to do because you're like, oh my God, emails, I have to get back to them. So get up a little earlier. I make myself some bone broth. I make myself this like concoction, I call it. It's like turmeric and ginger drink that I make. And then I sit down and I journal. And my journal cannot have anything to do with work. It can only be like a brain dump. And it can't be like, today I'm going to. And it's like, no. I'm feeling this. This is what's happening. And then that ritual in itself, like that routine has helped me a lot. And so that's what I'm trying to like sprinkle in mini routines throughout the day because my day cannot be the same all day. Like things come up. But if I can have little bits of normalcy, that's what I've been finding has been helpful.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because, I talk to my sons about this and various people and the fact that, you got to take a minute. I mean, when things hit you, maybe you do have to go and yes, have that meeting or do whatever, but then you have to give yourself a minute. Yeah. So you can get to the other side of it. And otherwise it's kind of like living in denial.
Yes.
And then you're just constantly and then it's going to come out in ways that are just, oh my gosh, that are just going to kick your ass. Yeah. And
in other relationships in your life, I have a fiance and I was definitely like short with him. And I was like, I'm sorry, like I still haven't processed this. So I like am going to get a little angry, but it's not you, it's me. Yeah. So that is definitely something that, but it comes up in different ways if you don't process it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure that the yoga has helped you. It's funny you said that. When I used to go to summer school when I was a little kid, on PBS, there would be this woman that every day would do yoga. And before I would go to school, my mom would sit me in front of it and she'd say, okay, we're going to do yoga before carpool. And we would do yoga before carpool. I would do, by the end of it, we're, child's pose. And then I'd hear the, honk. And then she'd say, okay. And then I'd go off to summer school. I did that every day. Yeah. I mean, I was like 7.
So beautiful.
Yeah. It was perfect. Yeah. It was really cool. So it is an incredible, the mindfulness and all of it, resetting yourself and really putting fitness into perspective. And so it makes me curious what your thoughts are about these very interesting things I'm noticing, these trends I'm noticing out there of the 7-minute Tai Chi walking and the 8-minute wall Pilates and Ozempic and GLP-1 and all these different things. What are your thoughts about that? And how do you deal with maybe some of your users who are feeling like they need to engage with that? So
I think the best lesson that I've ever learned was through my own, of course, life. So perfect example, college. I look back now and I'm like, oh, if only I was like this and more organized and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I was never going to be that person in college. Like of course now in retrospect, I'm more mature and like all of this, that was never going to be me. So looking back, I'm like, nothing that anyone said was going to change, unfortunately, what I was going through, because not that I was stubborn or anything, but when you are in survival mode, it's like your only like way forward is survival. Yeah. And some people like, and again, I was surviving college and like there are definitely more people that are going through much worse than that, but there was a sense in my brain like this was me trying to survive. Playing Division I field hockey, having a civil environmental engineering degree, like studying, like all of that. I was maybe getting 3 hours of sleep every night. And I was like, if only I just like got up a little earlier and meditated and all of that. Again, like you can't overload people with this. So some people, especially with the way social media is creating that like almost nervous system feeling of survival mode. But there's and also the climate in today's like political world and just like the way the US is like operating, people are in survival mode like every single day, just trying to pay the bills. And so if it's almost like there's that lack of control. And if there is something that will give them a sense of control, I'm not going to judge them on that because I have been there. And if that is giving you some sense of like peace, I'll let you ride, but we're also there for you when this might fall apart. Yeah. And so allowing people to go through their journey and learn it. And I'm not saying like you have to learn it on your own, all of it, but like sometimes like you do have to allow people to process this. Like there is absolutely a level of like consumption as it comes to, like, I think Ozempic is a really good example. And people are being told they do not look good enough. They are not thin enough. And they're like, I am getting ads for Fozempic, which is like, I guess some sort of supplement that makes you like not want to eat. I don't know. And I'm like, if I saw this like 4 years ago, I think I would have bought that. And so allowing people to be where they are, but also like, if I were to say like, you're wrong, you're doing it wrong, this is going to hurt you, then they feel like I'm not there for them to support them. And they feel like they can't show up maybe when it comes to that point. But it's like, okay, I'm like, I think you're perfect. I think what you're like, you are a healthy individual. But if this is something you need right now to feel safe, I'm not going to judge you. I'm here for you during this journey. And that alone gives them permission to maybe change their mind. But if you keep pushing in their face that they're wrong, you're going to be just met with more pushback.
Yeah. And that goes back to, I really think strongly your focus on the psychology behind, right? Taking a look, really, that alignment and, you know, making sure that you are, I mean, even when you were talking about the recovery, people do forget, you know, you need to support the recovery as much as you need to support the action. So fitness is a very unique space. And I was going to ask you, you know, how you deal with those folks who resist fitness, because, you know, there are those people who are like, I exercise, I can't, you know, I just don't get it, or you're either all in, and I know you've spoken to that, but how do you help those people just even get started if fitness just isn't part of their brain set?
Yeah. So it's funny, I posted a video on TikTok and Instagram, and it was like how to work out when you're depressed. And I got like 50 saves on that, and I do not have a lot of followers. So like 50 was like a pretty large amount of people to save this. And I think a lot of those, like, I went through this like when I was anemic. I thought I was depressed, and so I had to do like a little bit every day. But I think, again, allowing people to show up how feels comfortable to them is really important. But so actually, let me go back. The mindset of all or nothing, I gotta lock in. Like, you hear that all the time. It's like, I just gotta lock in for the next 3 months and it'll be good. I did that last summer and it worked. And it's like, did it work? You're here again. But I'm not saying that. I'm like, okay. And so I like almost reframed the conversation. So I sat down with someone, and we honestly, the conversation had nothing to do with fitness. And then all of a sudden it kind of like came out that we were talking about fitness. And I was like, yeah, like, it's when you hear the words lock in, when you lock yourself in, you're locking everything else out. Yeah. And you put blinders on. So you only see one thing, and you're taking away so much other opportunity for growth. And I was saying, like, again, you're blocking out your friends, you're blocking out maybe like fun opportunities or anything like outside of maybe that one vision that you have for yourself. And that's not growth. That is like, you're just kind of moving forward, which again, isn't always the right direction. But when we started talking about that, and I was like reframing the idea of locking in, and instead, like, you can have a goal for yourself. Absolutely. I think that's really important to have a goal. But that whole idea of locking in is detrimental to the process of that goal, because then your only thing is that goal. And once you hit that goal, like, what do you do? Right. And so when he was like, oh my God, I literally said to myself this morning, I need to lock in. He was like, because he was like, I'm not really getting that. I'm not going to the gym as much, and like things are coming up and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I got to lock in. And so then he was like, but every time I've locked in, I've gotten really depressed. And I was like, yeah, because you're not giving yourself any sort of grace, and you're like only focused on one thing. And it's, again, it comes back to that sense of control. And so I can't even remember what the question was now that I've talked about this. Sorry.
No, you're saying it. It was about, how do you get those
yeah.
people that don't, fitness, I don't know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, anything counts as fitness. I think that's like another big reframe is like
Yeah.
you don't have to lock in. You just have to do a little bit. And like, yeah, you don't, if it is too hard for your brain to even say that this is fitness, call it movement.
Yeah.
Like there is like almost like an easy way to reframe even the conversation around what you're doing. So if you're like, oh, like going for a walk is not fitness, okay, fine. I disagree, but I'm not going to argue on that. What we can come to an agreement on is you are moving. And so that is what let's focus on that then first.
Yeah.
We'll focus on fitness later. Let's just focus on movement first, and then we can get to fitness.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is like those little baby steps.
Yeah, helping you reframe it, I think that's a great way of looking at that. And it feels like that's just so needed. I mean, so desperately needed. Yeah. Before we even move into like the founder deep dive and all that, I wanted to ask you just one last thing.
Yeah.
When you jumped off into this world of entrepreneurship, what were you feeling like when you did, when you just like, boom, I'm going to go do that?
I actually felt so free, which is like, I think back to that summer and I was like, dang, I was in like the best time of my life because I was doing something that I've been thinking about in my brain for 2 years and like finally and there was always a barrier to it. So it always felt unreachable. But then I took that first step and I just thought to myself, wow, it's within reach. Yes, it might be a very far reach, but like this is something I am now working towards. And I think the best word for it was like freedom. And choice, like everything that I was doing was my own choice and every outcome is going to be based on my own effort. Yeah. And that is scary as well as freeing, but with that conviction of trusting yourself and what you're doing, it's not as scary. Yeah. So I think, just trusting yourself, having that confidence. And also that's why I think fitness is so important because it's little like micro opportunities for you to teach yourself that you can do hard things. And that is another reason why I think fitness should be accessible to everyone because it's not fair for only certain people to have that mindset or see that. Because like when you go into the workout, if you're doing a workout class or something, there's a part of you that's like, oh my God, this is going to be really hard. But then you walk out of that door. And so it's like, I did a hard thing. I can do hard things. And then you go maybe have a hard conversation with your boss. You just did that hard thing. You have that confidence. It's that pattern recognition that your brain has. It's not going to be like, oh, I can only like apply this difficulty to fitness. No, your brain applies it to every other aspect of your life. And so again, that I think was kind of those building blocks of letting myself do this, having the confidence that I can figure something out. But yeah.
Yeah, and I love that because it's also the thing that I always had regarding sports itself, being on a team and learning how to lose and learning how to win and learning all these different things. That's life. So how valuable that is. Oh, I love it. Okay, so we're going to get into the founder deep dive. Are you ready?
Yes,
okay.
Totally.
What would you do if someone suddenly gave you $500,000?
Oh, $500,000. I would absolutely put it into marketing. So I think a big not problem, but something that we are finding. So Mobius is just two people. It's myself and my co-founder, Julia. And we are both software engineers and personal trainers. As I said, we are not marketers. So we are doing as much as we can, posting on social media. We don't do paid ads because, again, we just don't have the money for that. So being able to hire someone to help us with the marketing and just visibility of Mobius, I think a lot of people are going to, every time I have a conversation about Mobius, it's usually met with, wow, yeah, totally get that. As like consumer, on the consumer side. Again, investor side is a little bit different, but every time that someone I'm talking to every day, like an everyday person, they immediately get it. And so I really think it's just a visibility thing for our brand. So that is where a lot of the money would go. It would also go into events. We want to sponsor some people that are doing what we are also like saying. We're local to New York City. There are so many cool communities that are meeting right now in fitness that are doing what we like our same ethos, and they're meeting in person. And so we want to help them. We want to sponsor some of their events. We host 2 events per month, so it would go also into some of those. Right now, we're doing like in the park yoga, which is so much fun because we don't really have money to put down for big events. So it would be nice to, give back to the people that are supporting our community right now by giving them these kind of events sponsoring other communities with similar ethos, and then also again just getting more brand visibility. Because we already built the app, so we just need to get out there.
We need people to know about it and to engage with it. I gotcha. Okay, so what is one financial or any reality, actually, of building your business that rarely gets talked about?
Surviving as the founder. I think a lot of times it's the what is it, 2% of startups are successful. A lot of people have to quit because they can't survive off of no money. And I think the classic thing that you learn when you're first starting is you don't pay yourself. That is, like, if you go to an investor and you're like, I'm going to pay myself a living salary and maybe add to some of my savings, they'll be like, I'm not giving you money to pay you to live. No, I'm paying you to go make this company big. Which again is so fair. I get it. That's a culture. That's fine. I'm signed up for it. I am bought in. But that is something I think that is rarely talked about. It's only talked about behind the closed doors. No one said, I remember when I put my first pitch together and I was showing it to someone that's like kind of in the space, and I had like a salary on there and they're like, take it out. No one's gonna invest in you if you have this salary. And I was like, really? I have rent to pay. But so I think that is something that's rarely talked about, especially in the startup world, especially financially. Like, you have to be okay with living on very little. But the whole idea is the payout in the end. Right. So that's kind of what your guiding North Star is.
Gotcha. Okay, so how did you decide to take the leap to seek outside capital? I'm assuming that because you've been talking about investors, so.
Yes. So it really comes down to we want this to scale, and we know what our barrier is, and we know what's working. We have traction. We have almost 500 users, and that has been on basically word of mouth and just our own social media. And the fact that we're getting traction and people are liking what we're producing for them, but we now need to get it to scale. That's why we're looking for outside capital. And yeah.
Yeah, makes total sense. Now, what fears did you have to overcome to do that?
Rejection.
Yeah, kind of obvious.
Getting used to people saying no. And so I think that, because especially when we get really good feedback. I haven't had someone tell us that this is a bad idea, even investors.
Right.
But not every good idea is something that people want to financially back.
Right.
And that is something you have to accept and just move on from. And so just like the rejection, I remember I say this to a lot of people that are starting out in entrepreneurship. The highs are some of the best highs you'll ever feel, because it's something when you're feeling that high, it's because you probably have hit a milestone or an outcome that you really had worked towards. And it's like, wow, I did this, I built this. So what an incredible high you have. But then when you're at those lows, woof, they are low. Because again, a lot of people are tying their identity, it's like their baby, to this company. And so when you're at that low, it's like, I am a failure. I did this. Like, I'm failing at this. So those lows are really hard. And I remember I had one of those really low days and I just watched Legally Blonde and I was like, I'm back.
Those little things that help us out. We all have that thing that helps us. Yeah. I'll tell you something really fun. One of mine is, so Daffy Duck and, so I love Daffy Duck. He cracks me up. But when he's Robin Hood, one of the things, the thing that makes me laugh so hard, no matter what, is when he's swinging across the trees and yikes and away, and he hits each tree. Whenever I'm feeling down, all I have to do is watch that. And I just start laughing, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm back.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, laughing is such a helpful thing. And it also almost, low-key, I'm sure in your subconscious, you're like, I get that. I feel like I've just hit every single tree.
Yeah. That's the other part. No, look at you. You're so smart. Okay. What did you almost do instead of taking this leap to do this?
Oh, I've had so many different, I have ADHD, and so I like a lot of things. And so there was a part of me that wanted to go fully into sustainability. My undergraduate was civil and environmental engineering, so I'm very passionate about sustainability. And one of my roles in the construction job that I was in, part of it was I was leading a lot of the sustainability efforts in New Jersey. Oh, wow. And so that had to do with where the waste are, I was the subject matter expert for waste. And so I was getting really into it, and it ended up the garbage world of like recycling and garbage is very political, and I had no idea. And so getting into all of those, I thought I was going to get a job within that company that was going to be head of sustainability for construction. Like, I really thought I was going down that road, and I also was looking at other jobs in sustainability. And then I also thought I would be an influencer in fitness as like a possibility. Like, I went through like this basically cult, but or not cult, an MLM scheme. But I did like this whole like how to get like high end ticket whatever clients for fitness. And because I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a celebrity trainer. I'm going to be an influencer and blah, blah, blah. And these are all, and then I also thought I was going to be an actress at one point.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, I thought I was going to do a lot of things. I have a lot of interests. I also love marine biology. I really wanted to like go, even then I was like, I'm just going to go out and like find like a secluded island that I can help with sustainability and like cleaning up and all of that stuff and like learning more about the biochemistry and all of that and the marine wildlife. And that was all within a span of like 2 years. I had all these attempts. So yeah, there are a lot of things, but I will say the fitness was always, there was always an like, I was like, while I do this, I will still do this in fitness. While I do this. So I was like, okay, the through line is I'm still trying to add fitness to every single element of this.
Right. Yeah. Well, you never know. You could always still be an actor. I mean, come on. Anything can happen.
Oh, I don't deny, like, I am always like, when I'm like done with this, yeah, I will be going and just like trying out for roles.
Next thing we know, you get an Oscar, and she's an overnight sensation. There you go.
I have dreams of this. Delusion.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna do the business minute. Are you ready?
Yes,
okay,
ready.
Business minute. So we're gonna have Caroline. She's gonna share a little bit with you about some things to keep in mind.
Yes. So when starting out in fitness, I think number one thing, like, have a slight level of delusion, because what you're doing technically has not been done before. And so you can't have this, I think, especially with women, you want to have the data behind to back up where you're going. And a lot of women that are going into these investor meetings will come with, hey, I have this traction, I have these numbers, I'm hitting this. And it's like a very easy in our brains and most people's brains it's a very easy and fundable thing because you have traction, you have the numbers, but you have to have the delusion as well, because people want to know that when things get tough and when these numbers are not hitting how we projected them to, they want to know that you're still going to be bought in. So go in there and be like, your life is about to be changed, because they might not believe you, but they're like, I'm glad that she believes it. So that is like one of the number one things. You have to have a level of delusion to you. And then along with that, we've talked about it, but also have a level of an opportunity of rest, a way to check in with yourself and have a support system. Be able to talk to people that have nothing to do with your business, because it is going to take over your life, in the best way, but talk to people that do not work in this industry or whatever industry you're in, because it will ground you. So a lot of times I like to take a trip up to Maine to visit my sister, because it is very different than New York City. She lives in like the countryside, and I take a deep breath of fresh air and I'm like, wow, I am not the center of the universe. And it is very important to have that. And I think one other thing is just keep talking to people. Keep putting yourself out there and get in situations and get involved in events in your industry, because so many people are out there that do want to help. And I think these kind of conversations, like I met Linda because someone said, oh, I have this friend that's doing this podcast, and I was like, oh, I'd like to talk to them. Say yes to opportunities. And I think I hit all of my bullet points. Yeah, I think that was 60 seconds.
Good job. Nicely done, Caroline. Okay, so now we're going to do rapid five. You ready?
Yes.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
Marine biologist.
That's the marine biology. Okay, when did that start for you? I mean, I know that's not part of the rapid five question, but when did that spark for you?
I loved the ocean. So I was a Percy Jackson reader, and I truly thought I was the daughter of Poseidon. And Because I'd like be in the ocean and I'm like, this I'm controlling. And so I just wanted to learn more about the wildlife that was in like the marine wildlife. Whenever we went to like a science museum, I always was like, is there a 3D movie on the ocean? And I would be like, we need those tickets. And so I wanted to immerse myself in that world. And I still, like, my mom is like, loves surfing and the waves, so I definitely get it from her. But I still am always watching stuff on like the deep blue and all of that.
Oh, cool. What always makes you smile?
SpongeBob. Always. Always.
Okay, tell you a little bit. Have you ever been to Humboldt University? Have you ever been there?
No.
Do you know the story? Okay,
No.
so the guy that created SpongeBob, he was in marine biology, and the reason that it's the pineapple under the sea is the marine biology building at Humboldt is, yeah, that's what it looks like. So, yeah, very cool. Get up there if you get a chance. Plus, it's a very cool campus, very cool area. Oh, I love that. Okay.
I do love that the background of SpongeBob is like they all are like marine biologists. It's so good.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. Okay, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger?
That you don't need to have it all figured out. And to actually, this is a really good quote from Matthew McConaughey. Be less impressed and more involved. And I think that, and again, not that I was always impressed with myself at all, but I think I just had a level of not being involved in everything. And I was like, this is fine. What I'm doing is fine, which it could be. But I think I wish I got myself more uncomfortable and involved in things that I didn't know about. Because that's what I do now. Yeah. And I'm a much more curious person. I think I'm a much more interesting person. I have more things to talk about and more passions in life.
Yeah, that's great. And what is your guilty pleasure?
I love, the Switch, my Switch. I've been playing the same video game for over a year. It's called Wildflowers, or Wildflower, and it's about a witch, like coven, like a secret coven, that this girl gets dropped into, that her grandmother kind of like grandmothers her into. And it's like, you're in a coven, you're in a town, there's love interests, and you're also farming. It's very fun.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then cat or dog?
I have to say dog, only because I'm allergic to cats, but I love them both. I still would get a cat, and my parents have a cat, and I just need to, I used to be allergic to dogs as well, and I had a dog growing up, but I'm grown out of it. So I want to do that with cats, and just like microdose myself with some of their fur. But as of right now, I can only live with a dog.
That sounds fair. I know, I love them both too. I have dogs. My mom was not a cat person, so we grew up not cat people, but I feel you. Animals in general, just
I love them.
Wonderful. Oh my God, Caroline, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. This was great. I really had a great time. Yeah.
I had so much fun. We could talk for hours.
I know. I mean, and we will be. Sorry.
We will.
You guys,
I was going to say.
You guys just won't be part of it. Thank you also for joining us again today for another episode. Please check out the link in the description below. Learn more about Mobius, learn more about Caroline and a fitness journey. I'm telling you, you will not regret it. And we will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.